Great. So, hello everyone. It's a pleasure being here. My name is Matti Aharoni, and I'm the core developer of the Kali Linux penetration testing distribution. I'm also the founder of several cornerstone elements in the information security arena, such as offensive security, the Backtrack, and now Kali Linux Linux distributions, the exploit database, and other various InfoSec-related projects. I'd like to expand a bit on each of these projects in a few words. So, offensive security is probably best known in the industry for its intense training and certification programs. With the first and only performance-based certifications in our field, our alumni are sought out all over the InfoSec market, and many organizations are shifting to using our certifications as a baseline standard. Now, offensive security was born from within the InfoSec community, and as such, we feel that we have an obligation to serve the community, and we do this through several ways. The first is the exploit database. Anyone familiar with this? Can I see a quick show of hands? That's good. Nice. So the exploit database is an archive of exploit code that has been published by the InfoSec community over the past 10 years or so. We collect exploits from forums, from mailing lists, from submissions that come to us, and publish them for the benefit of the security community and penetration testers. Many people ask me, what is this project good for? Well, that really depends who you ask. A penetration tester, for example, would say that the exploit archive helps in the process of penetration testing by providing a simple interface to look for exploits that can help them get into their target networks. A system administrator would say that the exploit database helps in the process of identifying vulnerable software in their network, thereby assisting in the reduction of their attack surface. A security analyst would probably say that the exploit database can provide invaluable information regarding the security track record of various software elements in the network, helping in the organizational decision-making process. But perhaps the best-known project that offensive security is responsible for is the Kali Linux distribution. This is the reason that we're here. So Kali is an open-source Linux distribution which is built for information security professionals, and it can be used for lots of stuff: forensics work, penetration testing, vulnerability discovery, vulnerability assessment, or as I jokingly like to summarize, Kali can cyber. Kali can cyber so well that it's even been used by the Department of Defense and Mr. Robot, which was quite a nice feature there. But joking aside, one of the main motivations of this talk is exactly this, because as Kali matures and shifts to the mainstream, certain attributes of the platform get lost in the background noise. Especially the management and administrative features, which are generally more useful in an enterprise environment than anywhere else. And this is what I'm here to tell you about. Speaking of the Department of Defense, Kali Linux has earned a certificate of network worthiness, which means that it's kosher enough to be used in government and military environments all over the world. So, as I was walking around the booths yesterday, hearing about the various security product solutions offered, I realized that I really am in a unique situation and in a unique position in this summit. I'm probably one of the few individuals who's representing an agenda which involves a free security product. I was suddenly overtaken with a sense of thankfulness for the persons who were responsible for inviting me to this summit, who obviously saw the benefits of diversification in security solutions, and also giving an opportunity to open source in this commercially dominated market. So once again, thank you very much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. So I frame all of this background in an attempt to establish some credibility before I move on to the core of this presentation and try to push my product upon you. I've been developing penetration testing distributions for over a decade now, and my motivation has always been a personal one. My own personal need for an organized, standardized environment for my security work as a penetration tester. And in a field with so few effective, professional, offensive tool sets and standards, Kali Linux really shines bright. I suspect this is part of the success that we've seen over the years. Just to give you a general sense, we have over 300,000 downloads on average a month. And this is unique downloads. And essentially, we're considered the de facto standard in the field. Add to this that the project is free and open source, allowing essentially for endless customization and modification. Organizations that have embraced Kali into their security lifecycle, they've seen real benefits in both return on investment and in an improvement in their security posture. And again, this is something that I'm going to try to convince you of in the process of this talk. So let's talk a bit about this product of mine and give a more detailed description of what Kali is all about, what it's capable of, and how it's used in the enterprise. Some people would describe Kali as a collection of penetration testing tools conveniently packaged inside the Linux distribution. This irks me because it's a very shallow view of the system. Kali Linux, as far as I'm concerned, is much more than that. If you'd ask me, I would say that Kali provides a real work platform for information security professionals. And by platform, I mean to say that it's specifically tailored to address issues and challenges faced by penetration testers and the InfoSec community at large. Let me give you an example, a practical example of this. This is something that I personally live on a monthly basis. But before I do, a quick disclaimer. This is not legal advice. I'm not a lawyer, and the following example doesn't constitute any legal advice, but, and this is, again, something that we experience quite often. Say that your penetration testing team has an engagement abroad. They travel to their destination, they perform their work, and they're now traveling back with very sensitive information on their laptops. Now, this information is protected by a very strict NDA that was signed between yourself and the company to whom you're providing these services. And as you approach border control, you realize that you may be asked to surrender your laptop and decryption passwords to law enforcement agents. What do you do? Do you break your NDA? Or do you defy law enforcement? Conundrum. So again, as something that we experience on a monthly basis, and again, considering that we want Kali to be a platform, we've come up with a technically viable solution for this situation. The particular technical solution is called the Kali Lux Nuke feature. And this is, again, unique to Kali as opposed to any other Linux distribution. A quick background on how this works. The technical maneuver behind this approach requires you to back up your hard drive decryption slots, assuming you have full disk encryption on your laptop. And this is known as the Lux header. You send this Lux header to your destination by email or by any other means, and then remove all key slots from your drive. So now, as you're crossing the border, your hard drive can't be accessed by anyone, including yourself. So this way, you can't be forced to reveal any decryption passwords, as none exist. Once you reach your destination, you've gone to the end, excuse me, you recover your LUX header from your email or whatever method that you use to send it over, reapply it to your device, and gain back control of your hard drive information. And that was a technically and hopefully legally sound way of protecting that sensitive customer information. So the Kali LUX nuke feature really helps simplify this whole process and makes it almost seamless. The Kali LUX nuke feature also has other benefits and uses. This is a small and interesting concept right here. Imagine you define your decryption password, which obviously should be very complex and hard to guess. But then you also include a nuke password, which is simple, such as 12345. Next thing that happens is that your laptop gets stolen. And this malicious third party that stole your laptop tries to brute force the decryption password to your laptop. As part of that brute force attempt, the password 12345 is entered, and the minute that happens, your drive digitally destructs, making any further attacks implausible. So this is, again, another unique feature of Kali amongst many others, all aimed at making Kali a platform for information security professionals, targeted at those people. Let's explore some more features, because things get even more interesting, and we'll slowly move from the small and personal to the large and enterprise-oriented features here. This is a really cool feature, one of my favorite perhaps, of Kali being more than just a mere tool set, and it really demonstrates the flexibility that we have here. Kali can be customized and manipulated into providing features which simply don't exist elsewhere. An example is Organization X, we'll call them, needed a solution to perform remote security engagements which would cut down on travel and personnel costs while still providing flexibility to its penetration testers. So a few tweets back and forth, and a very simple and easy solution to this requirement came in the form of a self-installing Kali ISO image that would, the client could take that ISO image, pop it into an unused computer or a virtual environment, and the ISO would deploy itself without any user interaction, a real sort of touch-and-go experience for the client. And as that happens, the installation would automatically and securely connect back to Company X's target network over an encrypted VPN tunnel and provide full layer 3 access to their penetration testers. And this was done out of the box. Just shove the ISO in, turn the machine on, and everything happens automatically. We affectionately call this ISO the Kali Linux ISO of Doom, because it could be used for nefarious purposes as well. Imagine you pop this ISO into someone's network, and before they know it, the attacker has full access to the internal resources of that network. But to give perhaps a more visual explanation of what this appliance achieved, let's take a look at this diagram. Okay, so this is the appliance or the ISO that was popped into the target network. It creates a reverse VPN connection to our attacker. There's a bridge networking element here, so now essentially once the bridge is created, this attacking machine gets an internal IP from the target network, and now there's full layer 3 access between this guy and all those machines over there. And this is open source, and it works perfectly. So let's move on a bit and see a few other interesting features of Kali, especially its support, its extensive support for exotic ARM hardware. You might recognize the Raspberry Pi and all sorts of other cool little gadgets here. And this is especially interesting as there's a range of inexpensive and diverse form factors here. So this allows for cheap or stealthy deployment of penetration testing agents at client sites. And again, this can reduce overhead and manpower and travel expenses as well. Probably one of my favorite side projects, a sister project called NetHunter. Anyone heard of this, by the way? Yes, not enough. We've been doing a crappy job at making this known to the public, but this is a really, really cool project. A free and open source mobile penetration testing distribution that runs off mobile phones and pads. So this platform is especially interesting on internal engagements where stealth and discretion are required. I'd like to show us a nice implementation of NetHunter, something that actually happened in the field. And I know that this demo will freak certain people out, because it will. But this is not my point. The point here isn't to scare you. It's just to give you an idea of how flexible and how powerful these systems can be made, and how inexpensive they are as well, because all of this demo that I'm about to show you was performed on a OnePlus cell phone. So let's see if we can get this going. Before I actually show the video demo, I just want to frame this a bit and give you a sort of general understanding of what we're doing. So again, the premise of this demo was an on-site engagement where an unidentified stealthy attacker gains access to the internal wireless network of a corporate environment. And what happened was that the organization wanted to see what type of damage was possible to the organization and what tool sets and skills were required to perform this attack. And then the following demo ensued. So just a quick explanation. We've got the corporate machines and corporate laptops here, usually connecting to the corporate Wi-Fi, which then goes out to the internet. And then our attacker comes with his phone, which has a little dongle, a USB dongle, and then with a click on the phone, a wireless network is created, which competes with the corporate Wi-Fi, kicks off users from this corporate Wi-Fi, and then forces them to connect to the fake access point on the phone. And then essentially what happens is that all the traffic that flows from these corporate machines is man-in-the-middled by a mere phone. And this, of course, opens up a whole world of opportunities. But the implementation of this attack is what was really scary. So I would like to show you a quick video demo and give you a short walk through what was happening there. And maybe this will make you think twice as you open up your laptops and check your emails from a public network like this, especially as you've got people with these phones all around you. So this is the Kali NetHunter phone. It's now lopsided, but opening up a terminal, essentially what you do is you start a wireless access point service, a single script. This was now improved to a single press of the button, but I wanted to show the scripts that were responsible for this process behind. So essentially now we start an access point, which competes with the corporate access point, and that's fired up. Next thing we do is we run a tool called Backdoor Factory Proxy. And this is the tool responsible for doing some malicious things, and I'll quickly explain what the Backdoor Factory does. As the traffic passes from the victim clients to the internet, imagine someone downloads a file. So what the Backdoor Factory does is it notices that a file is passing through it, and it dynamically injects a backdoor into that file, taking the normal legitimate file from the internet, backdooring it, and then passing it to the client. So as far as the client's concerned, what's just happened is that they downloaded the file reached their computer, they double-click it, and bam, they've just been owned. That's an unpleasant thought. So let's see this happen. So once the backdoor factory has been started, we start the Metasploit Framework, which I suspect most of you are familiar with. And we enable some payload handlers to accept those incoming connections from our victims. And again, all of this is done off a cell phone. With more recent versions of NetHunter, this has been reduced to a single click of a button on an Android app. So everything gets fired up, Metasploit gets ready to do its evil deeds. And let's see what this looks like from the victim's point of view. So this guy opens up Internet Explorer, assuming he's already connected to our evil access point, and he wants to download a file. He randomly goes to the internet. Let's say he wants to download the putty installer, whatever. Goes there, clicks the download button as he would normally. In this case, he's downloading the actual installer. As the file gets downloaded, it's automatically backdoored on the fly on the cell phone. The file is downloaded. Executed. And from there on, this guy is going to have a very bad day. So the installation completes here. Notice that the victim has no idea of anything wrong that's been going on. The installation just happens automatically. The tool that he downloaded works. It's seamless. And in the background, Mr. Evil Hacker here has got a Meterpreter session on their phone. Okay, so this is just the proof of concept here. We're showing the sys info, and of course we get our coveted shell, and game over. So again, this is just to give you a feel of the type of capabilities that a simple phone can have. Quite disturbing. So I thought that attack was pretty cool. We felt really good when we did it, until I saw someone attach a similar system to a drone, which gives on the fly a whole new meaning here, because that means that you don't physically need to be there to do this. Your drone just hovers, next to wherever, and this thing actually worked. This was a really, really interesting project. But again, this just gives a sense of the flexibility and the abilities that open source can provide. So let's move on to larger, more enterprise environments. Our team has worked together with both Amazon AWS and Microsoft Azure engineers to deploy Kali in their respective clouds. So users of both services can find Kali as one of the listed operating systems available in these clouds, and of course they're supported by the extensive APIs that each one of these services provide. So deployment of multiple instances of Kali across the world really has never been easier. Now, one of our recent improvements was adding extended GPU offerings to these cloud services as well. So your penetration testing teams can now have immediate and unimaginable computing power at incredibly low costs, right? Because essentially, you have the tools and resources of nation-state actors which are now available to the private sector as well. It really allows you to level up and get the same visibility into these vulnerabilities as they do. You just go up to Amazon, spin up 20, 30 odd GPU-enabled machines, cluster them together, and you've got an awesome cracking rig at, I won't say zero cost, but much less than if you need to implement this by yourself. So let's move on and talk about some real implementations of Kali Linux inside a specific Fortune 5 organization. Now, I was really lucky. I had the privilege of being in touch with a network and security architect of one of these guys as they were deploying Kali extensively inside their network. So this provided me with an amazing insight into the problems and challenges that these guys were facing. And in return, said network and security architect benefited from personal support from us and consultation services as well, which allowed me to fine-tune Kali to support some of these requirements. So all in all, it really was a win-win experience. It gave me amazing insight into what these requirements are. So what were these requirements? What were these problems or challenges that were faced by this organization? The first challenge revolved around deployment and management orchestration. How do you deploy Kali in an immensely large and segmented network? Often with limited access to external resources. Once deployed, how do you manage these installations? How do you keep them up to date? How do you tear them down once you've finished working with them? The next issue was multiple user support across penetration testing systems. They had red teams that they needed to support. So you need to have user accountability, which is often hard in an environment such as Kali, which is specifically designed for single user support. So you really want to ensure that each penetration tester has their own working environment, which is separate from their other colleagues. And lastly, apart from penetration testing, the organization was doing something pretty cool. They were automating internal vulnerability assessments in an attempt to be proactive in improving their security posture. That makes sense. So how can this be done elegantly using Kali Linux? Let's dive deeper into some of these solutions and see how we can bring solutions to these enterprise challenges. So the first action taken by this Fortune 5 organization was to host an internal Kali mirror in their organization. And what this did is it allowed, it generally increased the speed and ease of deploying Kali in the internal network, because now they didn't have to go to external resources outside to the internet to pull all of these files in. So that was a great help. Next, what they did is they created a collection of scripts and pre-seed files that deployed Kali automatically using IPXE, which is actually a very interesting technology. So a custom ISO was provided to their server engineering team, and on boot, it would connect Kali to an enterprise server, get the appropriate pre-seed files and scripts, install the necessary files, and configure all the necessary connections that they needed internally. And then lastly, they were using SaltStack, which is an open source configuration management suite. It's also a very, very interesting open source solution. And this was used to manage and orchestrate the Kali instances. So for example, now you need to update 3,000 installations of Kali. That can be done with a single command on a master server, and this pushes out an update command to those 3,000 machines, which again was a very interesting solution to orchestrate such a large collection of instances. So that was also pretty cool. Now, to resolve the issue of multiple user support across the enterprise, the Kali systems were actually connected to Active Directory, which to me was an eye-opener. You know, I live in my little Linux world, and suddenly having that integration with Microsoft systems was amazing for me. So this gave everyone their home folder and allowed users to see who was logged in, and this generally improved team communication. So home folders were hosted over NFS shares, allowing the teams to tear down and reinstall Kali while still keeping their personal files and scripts and custom tools. And then remote desktop access was set up on Kali, and this again was integrated with Active Directory so that users could log into the Kali GUI seamlessly from their Windows environments. So this really was an A++ setup. Perhaps one of the most interesting features that this organization was doing, again, was deploying an automated vulnerability analysis solution. And this, again, was executed using completely open source elements. And to me, this was amazing. So Kali pre-seed scripts, as the machines were being built dynamically, the pre-seed scripts were set up to install Kali together with the open source vulnerability scanning engine of OpenVAS. And then once the machine was set up, it would automatically scan the local network segment, filter out the results so that only the critical vulnerabilities were present, and then the Kali instance would upload these results to a secure location and then self-destruct, which was pretty cool. Because then at the end of the day, what you have is a collection of vulnerability reports, again, filtered to just show the critical vulnerabilities that were discovered. And what this did is it would help the red teams by basically giving them a better run for their money. Because now that all the low-hanging fruit has been discovered, the red teams had the possibility to essentially focus on the more intricate vulnerabilities that were present. So this whole operation, Kali supports all of this out of the box, which to me was really cool. So this is a little output from OpenVAS. It gives you a sense of the type of reporting that you can get. And again, what this does, in my opinion, is it helps improve the overall network security posture of an organization. Because this information is fed into their teams, into their system administration teams, into their blue teams automatically, and then they can respond to these things before the red team arrives. So I'd like to remind you again that this whole software solution came at the amazing price of $0, totally free. The reality of that statement, of the last statement, maybe slightly different than what reality would actually imply. Because while there were no actual software costs or licensing costs in this whole setup, of course, obviously there were operational costs, right? We can't ignore that. And these costs came mostly around research, testing, and education. And our friend Jamie Zawinski once said back in the 90s that Linux is only free if your time has no value. And you know, while I can identify with this statement, I think much has changed since the 90s, a good 27 years ago. And the learning curve and the tool chains have vastly improved since. So, you know, documentation has become more abundant, communities have grown and become more centralized, and software has matured since. You know, it's no longer the days of trying to read the source code to figure out how this application works. So Linux is free, and your time may still have value. And that's my personal belief. But of course, I'm biased. So taking that philosophy and as our own maturation process occurs, the Kali team has recognized the need to provide educational enterprise solutions. And we're actually about to release our first official book and manual describing and documenting pretty much all of the technical aspects that we've discussed so far in this presentation. This book is actually really exciting. We've been working on it for a while now, and it's a free book. We'll be providing it for free, and it will be accompanied with a new information security certification, which will be available after Black Hat Vegas in late July 2017. And essentially what we're hoping is that with this information being public and freely available, the learning curve associated with implementing such enterprise solutions will be reduced. And this will allow organizations to be more proactive with their security solutions while still keeping their operational costs down. So Kali really does have a massive following in the InfoSec community, and it's fueled by an intense loyalty and appreciation for the project. And it's this fuel that has encouraged us to move ahead with our work, and we really are very happy to see it grow. So I personally welcome you all to join our community, and I look forward to the future of the project. Tattoos are optional, by the way. So that's it for today. Thank you very much again for having me here. I really enjoyed to be the voice of open source in this conference, and if there are any questions, I'll gladly take them.
Thank you, Matti.
Thank you.
I've long had a soft spot for Kali Linux. It's really great to hear from the horse's mouth. Are there any questions from the floor? I see no hands. Yes, sir.
Good on you.
So, in the book, does it cover also the tools in it, or just the operational
That's a great question, and we've been asked this quite a lot. You know, traditionally, Kali Linux books have focused around penetration testing, and they focus around the tools and how to use Nmap and how to use Metasploit. And the fact is, I think there's over a dozen books that cover this, including our own offensive security training, which again focuses around the tools of Kali Linux. But what we've noticed over the time is that people come to these tools without understanding the underlying operating system. And this is what this course deals with. It's how to use the operating system. It's how to apply the operating system in various environments, such as an organizational environment, such as a penetration testing environment. So we're not focusing on the tools at all. We're focusing on the operating system. So think, you know, Red Hat certified engineer type training. We're focusing on the operating system, not on the tools and the penetration testing aspects of it. And in my opinion, especially what we see as students come to the offensive security side of trainings, is that many of them want to learn how to hack, but then don't have a basic understanding of Linux, and even worse, don't have a basic understanding of Kali. And then they get stuck and they get frustrated because they don't have that foundation. So in a way, this comes as a prerequisite to taking it that step further and going into the actual penetration testing arena. Thank you. That's a great question. I'll sign my check for you a bit later.
There's another question in the front here.
Thank you. Thank you. That's wonderful to hear. Kali also supports, you're talking about forensics, right? Yeah, so that's another feature that we do. We don't do much forensics work, but we realize the benefit that a system like that could have. And with a relatively small change in Kali, we were able to give support to the forensics field. And thank you. That's great to hear. I really appreciate that.
What are the phone requirements for NetHunter?
Pardon?
What are the phone requirements for NetHunter?
Good question. If you go over to our NetHunter page, what you'll see is that most of the phones that are required, the hardware that's required are Google phones. But what has been going on in the past year or so is that we've had some Google developers, some Google and CyanogenMod, which now has disappeared, but we've had some of those guys come in, and what they've done is that they've started porting the NetHunter kernel into dozens, literally dozens of phones. So not officially, I think there's support for about 20-something different phone models, 1+1, 1+2, 1+3T, Nexus 6, Nexus 6X, and the list goes on there. If you go to the NetHunter page, you'll be sent, there's a link that takes you to the nightly builds, and you'll see a really, really long list. And really, you've got everything there, from these oddball Chinese models to high-end devices. Of course, each phone might have its benefits, like 1+1 phones support a external battery. So you can leave that at a location for 3-4 days, especially if you've got a nice hefty battery. And then whatever evil deed that you're doing can be supported for a longer time. So some phones have certain benefits while the others don't.
All right, we're going to have to leave it at that. Mati, Aharoni,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us.